So I continued to read into what you might call Feuerbach's love mysticism. Now, this word love, I think we can kind of generalize it to feeling in general, and we kind of get a whiff of pragmatism here. The centrality of care in our deciding to call something real or unreal. He says love is not only objectively, but also subjectively the criterion of being, the criterion of truth and reality. Where there is no love, there is also no truth, because who gives a damn? And only he who loves something is also something. To be nothing and to love nothing is one and the same thing. The more one is, the more one loves, and vice versa. The old philosophy had its point of departure in the proposition, I am an abstract, a merely thinking being to which the body does not belong. The new philosophy proceeds from the principle, I am a real and sensuous being. Indeed, the whole of my body is my ego, my being itself. The old philosopher, therefore, thought in a constant contradiction to and conflict with the senses in order to avoid sensuous conceptions, or in order not to pollute abstract concepts. So you see pure meaning, rarefied, defleshed, isolated, quarantined meaning, kept safe from the death that is equivalent to life. In contrast, the new philosopher thinks in peace and harmony with the senses. So Feuerbach came, I think he wrote this before Nietzsche, so I think you can also get hints of what Nietzsche would develop. The old philosophy conceded the truth of sensuousness only in a concealed way, only in terms of the concept, only unconsciously and unwillingly, only because it had to. This is borne out even by its concept of God as the being who encompasses all other beings within himself. For he was held to be distinct from a merely conceived being. That is, he was held to be existing outside the mind, outside thought, a really objective, sensuous being. In contrast, the new philosophy joyfully and consciously recognizes the truth of sensuousness. It is a sensuous philosophy with an open heart. The philosophy of the modern era was in search of something immediately certain. So Heidegger talks about this in his early lectures, the obsession of Descartes with certainty. Hence, it rejected the baseless thought of the scholastics and grounded philosophy on self-consciousness, a point that Heidegger goes into. That is, it posited the thinking being, the ego, the self-conscious mind in place of the merely conceived being, or in place of God, the highest and ultimate being of all scholastic philosophy. So yes, the ego, the self-doubting ego, who can't doubt its own existence, replaces God. And this is, some of that nihilism of an absolutized, immaterial subject. For a being who thinks is infinitely closer to a thinking being, infinitely more actual and certain than a being who is only conceived. So this undoubtable possibility of doubt itself, it is substantial, this immaterial ghost in the machine. This, when people first get into philosophy, some of them genuinely suffer the so-called problem of the external world, but others are at least delighted to play with it, well, how can I be sure that there's really a world out there? So, I would say, well, why are you so sure that you're in a container to begin with? Doubtful. Doubtful is the existence of God. Doubtful is, in fact, anything I could think of. But indubitable is that I am, I who think and doubt. Yet this self-consciousness in modern philosophy is, again, something that is only conceived, only mediated through abstraction, and hence something that can be doubted. Indubitable and immediately certain is only that which is the object of the senses, of perception and feeling. So we again get the primacy of perception that Merleau-Ponty writes so brilliantly about. True and divine is only that which requires no proof, that which is certain immediately through itself. And note all these italics for emphasis. Something which speaks immediately for itself and carries the affirmation of its being within itself. In short, that which is purely and simply unquestionable, indubitable, and as clear as the sun. But only the sensuous is as clear as the sun. When sensuousness begins, all doubts and quarrels cease. The secret of immediate knowledge is sensuousness. I think this is very deep. It's too simple. It's too close to our nose. If we've inherited Cartesianism, we think this weird abstract ghost in the machine is somehow supposed to be ultimately real. The attempt to say that the perceived object is unreal. So this is why I embrace phenomenalism. Now, phenomenalism, if you look it up, and you might find it written about from the outside. But phenomenalism, the point is to sort of emphasize the reality of the perceived object as the perceived object. That fire hydrant that I see the fire hydrant. I'm not caught in a gallery of representations. So, indirect realism tries to make perception unreal. So like in Kant, you have perception described as representation, but perception is original presentation. So it's almost funny that so many people could be taught to doubt perception. Now we live as direct realists. So it's a theoretical vanity. It's a theoretical conceit. Indirect realism is a kind of theoretical pose. But people live, they direct themselves in a deep trust in the sensuousness of the world, right? Like, if I see that truck bearing down on me, I'm not like, oh, that's a representation. I'm in a video game.